Another formula that is very useful, especially with things like budgeting, but also things like reaching goals and targets where you just want to count how many times you've done X, Y, or Z, and you're drawing from a list. And that's very, very common. So a formula that is designed for that is the count and the Countif formula. Works very similar to the sum and the SUMIF formula. So it shouldn't take long to get your head around this if you've been following my previous tutorials. And what we're going to do is fill in E3, where I'm wanting to count down this list how many times I've had a takeaway in the month of January. Well, it's very easy. Now, if you're just doing a normal count, then you'll just say, okay, count, and then open brackets and close brackets. And you want to know, you're going to count down different values. And so again, it's like the sum formula. You can do this, but that's very cumbersome. So instead, you will be counting down a range. Now, when you count just like this and then hit enter, well, it's going to return, well, in this case, 0, because it's looking for a string. Now, imagine that instead I want to count across here, and it's looking at numbers, then it will return, well, 7, because it's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 entries. So again, text works different to numbers. Don't ask me why. But as you can see, and also you may have noticed, you can actually move a range around by clicking on that range and moving it about, and then it automatically updates the formula for you. But yes, text and numbers work differently, so that's just something to bear in mind. But this doesn't do me much good at the minute. I mean, it's saying there's 7 entries here, which is true, and if you click and drag across that range, it does the count for you, similar to sum. It does a count at the bottom right. That's 7. Now, I am going to mention this just because you may occasionally want to do this. If you want to do the same thing but with text, just to count the number of entries in a list, you can do counta, like that. It's the same thing. You add the A, but this time it works for text as well. Don't ask me why it's like that. It just, Excel is a bit quirky. And so it works the same here for numbers and for text, but this doesn't tell me a lot. This just tells me how many items are in that actual list. And I don't want to know that. I want to specifically know how many takeaways I've actually had. Now you can see here that I've been entering different entries into my list. I've got takeaway, and then I've got takeaways, slightly different. Now I'm going to want to count how many takeaways I've had. Now, without data validation, you'll often run into this kind of problem where you can't necessarily rely on yourself being consistent in the way that you're inputting information. So first of all, I'm going to show you what to do. We're going to fix that range in place with F4. And what we're going to do is change this to Countif, which now works the same, by the way, for numbers and for text. Don't ask me why, but if you change it to Countif, it behaves differently. So again, look at the syntax. It's going to ask you, okay, I'm counting if. So I want to know, well, what range am I looking at? And then what criteria am I actually going to be using? So you put the comma after you've inputted the range. Now you want to say, well, what's the criteria? And I'm going to just type in here, takeaway, because I want to know how many takeaways I've had. Now you press enter and it will say 1 because it has found a takeaway. But the problem is you've also got takeaways like that with an S on the end. So this is perhaps a little bit more advanced, but I'll show you anyway because it's something I found that I've used an awful lot. So this would work quite nice if you were consistent. Say you just did takeaway like this. Now it's updating that correctly. So that is how to use the count and the Countif formulas, and counter as well if you are going to need it. So it should be fairly straightforward, but what do you do if you want to try to account for slight discrepancies like this? Well, there is a way of doing it, and it's to insert something called a wildcard. So a wildcard basically indicates ignore anything either side of this criteria. So this right here is your criteria, take away. Now you might have put something like, I don't know, I got a takeaway. Now, if you said I got a takeaway, what you're wanting to say in here is ignore anything to the left of the word takeaway. And the way that you do that is with this bit of syntax here. Speech marks, asterisk, speech marks, ampersand. This here is it's technically this part here, the asterisk in between the speech marks is the wild card, which you've then concatenated, in other words, attached it to the criteria. So this means that to the left of the criteria, ignore everything. Let's see what that does. It updates it to 2, because it's going to go and it's going to look through all of this. Okay, here's takeaway, nice and simple. But here's I got a takeaway. It's going to ignore all of that because you've said in your wildcard, ignore anything to the left of the word takeaway. So that's very, very useful. Now, what if you said takeaways? You can see it goes back down to 1 because there's something to the right of the word takeaway. And so that's very easy to fix. You do a similar thing, just the other way around. The syntax changes slightly because you want to put the ampersand first. The ampersand represents something called concatenation. It just means attaching. And then open speech marks, asterisk, and then speech marks again. So now what you're saying is ignore everything after and ignore everything before. I just want to see how many times does this word appear inside this list. And there you have your result. So that just allows for some flexibility for you to be able to count things and not have to worry too much. Just all you need to use is the word takeaway. I mean, look, if you do take away as 2 separate words, then again, it's not perfect, but it should help. So thank you. And I hope that you find that useful in the edificationism of your life.